Welcome to the final video of this mini course on web scraping for algo traders using Python. So far, you've learned how to scrape static pages using requests and beautiful soup, kind of handle dynamic content using Selenium, and extract data from real-world trading websites like Screener, Chartink, and NSE India. In this last video, I want to share some of the best practices, tips, and some of the ethical considerations also, so that you can use web scraping responsibly and effectively in your algo trading journey. Let's look at some of the best practices for web scraping. The first and foremost is obviously respect the website you're trying to scrape. Always check their robots.txt file. What this file tells you is that it basically defines which parts of the sites are okay to scrape and which ones aren't, right? So while it's not legally binding in most cases, it's a good practice to kind of honor the site's preferences. Scraping too aggressively or violating their terms of use can actually get your IPs blocked, or even worse, get you into legal trouble, right? For example, NSE is quite strict. So if you hit their site too frequently, you will actually get rate limited, or even you might get blocked permanently. The next one is to use actually headers and mimic a browser. So many websites, as you know, use bot protection. So if your scraper doesn't look like a real browser, it might get blocked. So always use your user agent in the request header to mimic as if you're coming in from a regular browser. You can also include a referrer or accept language and other headers to make your the request that you're sending look very natural. So we already looked at some of the examples and I explained it to you in the previous module. Let me give you a practical example of what I'm talking about. For example, this particular NSE India web page, right, where the Nifty 50 constituents are there. If you try to scrape this directly, you may end up with some errors and it won't let you scrape because there are some bot protection rules around it. So the usual workaround is that you use a referrer, right? For example, if you go to this page and then try to do an inspect. Inspect is done by doing a right click and doing this, or you can press F11 and then this opens up this particular page, and then you go into network and find the exact the API call that's currently the client is calling to get this data, and it is this one. If you go into headers and then come all the way down, you would find this one called the referrer, right? And then there is a link, right? So the typically the way the website basically works is it looks for genuine requests that are basically coming in from this referrer site, and only if those are coming through the proper channels, this particular page is served, right? It will let you scrape. So what you actually try and do is now mimic as if a request is coming from this particular referrer site, and then you try to scrape the data on this particular page. And this is how you implement that particular strategy in your Python code. And then this is the example that I've taken from the NS utility itself, which we briefly looked at in the previous video. So here, what I'm trying to do is get the pre-market data. And then similarly, like I explained, I go into the actual API call and then find out what's the referrer URL that this request is coming from. So that is this one, referrer URL. And then I do a first request and get that referrer URL, as part of this particular function. And then once I do that, I extract the cookies that I get from this particular function, which is referrer.cookies, and then use that cookies and then call the actual the API endpoint that I really want, right? So if you directly call this one without this particular cookie being set, you would have errors. The NSE website wouldn't allow. So what you're trying to really do is use the referrer website first, get that URL first, and then get the cookie from that one, set that cookie, and then call the actual URL that you want, and then automatically the data gets downloaded. So this is a sort of a sleek workaround that you really apply. One of the standard practices that most people use when trying to do web scraping. And the third one being be gentle, avoid spamming. So avoid hammering websites with requests, right? So for example, if you are trying to scrape a lot of data from a website, you keep sending multiple requests within a few fraction of seconds. That's actually not good, right? So whenever you have a requirement like that, use always things like time.sleep, and then you wait for maybe a second or a half a second or a couple of seconds before you fire the next request. Or sometimes even random.uniform is another function that you could actually use to add delays between requests, right? So if you're scraping a large data set, kind of do it slowly over time. Even better, schedule it during off-peak hours and use caching to avoid repeated requests, right? So the rule of thumb is, if you grab the data once a day and store it locally, do that instead of scraping in real time every few seconds, right? That'll probably be a better way of doing it. And best practices number 4 is handle failures gracefully, which is very important. So always assume that your scraper might fail, right? Maybe the structure of the website has changed, or maybe you're rate limited. So add try and accept blocks within Python code, check for none values, and log the errors instead of letting the script crash. So use tools like retry or tenacity libraries if you're building something a bit more robust. And the next comes, use APIs when available. As I had already explained, there are a number of ways to scrape, including the HTML ways and all that. Personally, the best way and the most cleanest way is to find the API endpoints and use that to scrape data. So if a site offers an official or an unofficial API, use it instead of scraping just the HTML, right? APIs are more stable, cleaner, and less likely to kind of break. And finally, organize and scale your scrapers. As you build more scrapers, organize your code into more reusable functions or classes, right? So, for example, structure your scripts to number one, a separate function to pull data, a separate function to clean and transform that data, and a separate function to optionally store it in either CSV or push it into a database. So you can even build a full data pipeline around your scrapers using tools like Airflow, cron, or custom schedulers. There you go. That's all that I had to share in this mini course. As you know, data scraping is a very vast subject and there are a ton of ways to do this. However, to keep the course simple and also keeping in mind the actual use case, which is, from an algo trader's point of view, I believe I've done justice to your time. As always, thank you for your patience and learning with me. I hope this was useful to you and I really hope you use these concepts in your algo trading journey and share this knowledge around. I will drop a bonus module a little later where I will also cover how you can use AI to scrap data, wherein I'll dive deeper into the complex world of AI-based data extraction. So watch out for that video soon, and I'll see you around. So thanks again. Have a wonderful day ahead. Happy trading.